The 2026 Formula One season has officially started, like 10 minutes ago. It's currently 5:41 on March 5th in the United States and California, and so the season only started about 10 minutes ago. Practice is going on right now on the other side of this wall. My roommate's watching right now, but I'm trying to avoid all spoilers because I want to make a predictions video before I see any of the results. So I wanted to make a predictions video about the 2026 season because there's so much to talk about. First of all, we have the brand new regulations, the biggest regulation change in Formula One history. We have aerodynamic changes, we have active aero, we have the MGU-H being taken out of the V6 engine. There is a 50-50 power split now between the combustion engine and the electric motor. We have two brand new teams, including Cadillac, and then we have Audi, who is, picking up the scraps from Sauber. Getting new teams on the grid and new engine manufacturers was exactly what this 2026 regulation change was about. And I'm so incredibly excited about this season. I haven't felt this excited since basically 2022, the last regulation change. But this is a big, huge opportunity for a lot of teams to move up the grid. We haven't really seen that in testing. It seems to be like the regular four of McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. But who knows? Who knows what may happen? So let's start. Starting off with the big red car, Ferrari. Well, I think Lewis Hamilton will do a lot better this year than he did last year. He will have a lot more influence in the Ferrari coming into this season. I'm still going to give it to Charles Leclerc in the head-to-head. Leclerc has been at that team since 2019. And I think Lewis is potentially past his prime. I think he'll do a lot better this year because, he'll have adapted to this car more. But just looking at last season, I still have to give it to Charles Leclerc. But I think this will be one of the closest title battle or closest head-to-head battles we have this season. Now, Mercedes, who are, to many people, the favorites going into this 2026 season. There were so many rumors over the break of Mercedes having easily the best engine on the grid, and looking at testing, they're extremely reliable and extremely quick. But I think when it comes down to it, it's going to be George Russell or Kimi Antonelli. I love Kimi. I think he did a great job last season, his first full-time season in Formula One. But George Russell, again, has been in that team for a long time. I don't think it's a question that he will beat Kimi Antonelli this year. Now, this one might surprise you. For McLaren, I've gone actually for Oscar Piastri. I think if you look at last season, I think one of the things that really hurt Oscar Piastri was just all that talk. This obviously applied to Lando as well, but all that media talk and fan talk about who's going to be the better McLaren driver by the end of the year, who's going to take the title. I think that can have an effect on two rookie title fighters, I'll call it. Those both their first time really fighting for a championship. And I think now that Lando has actually gotten the championship, he'll have less to prove. It'll be a little less pressure going for the championship. And I think that could benefit Oscar a lot, especially with, the mix-up and the chaos that I think this 2026 season will be. It'll be close, but overall I think Piastri might take it over Lando this year. But we'll see. Now, Haas, who, to the surprise of many fans, this team might be top 5, top 6 on the grid because they had a huge step up this year, looking at testing so far. So between them, I'm going to give it to Ollie Behrman. He beat Esteban Ocon last year by a pretty decent amount of points. I think he's a fantastic young driver. And if he proved anything last year, he's going to go and beat Ocon again this year. So we'll see. I think the team that Haas will be fighting against will be Alpine, with Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto on the team. And I think he got a little bit too much hate last year. I know it was his first full-time season in Formula One, and we saw what he did at the Williams in 2024, and I think he has a lot more potential. But just based on experience, I got to go Pierre Gasly. I think he's a very underrated driver on the grid, and I see him beating Franco again this year. But I think Alpine could be one of the better midfield teams this year, but we'll see. Williams. This is another one that I think might surprise people. Alex Albon versus Carlos Sainz. Alex Albon did beat Carlos Sainz last year in the championship, and while I think this will be one of the closest battles between teammates, especially Sainz in his second year at Williams, he'll have gotten used to that car more, he'll have more influence in the 2026 version of the car. I think that is just going to go to Albon. He's solidified his spot in that team, and another driver who I think is very underrated on the grid. I think people started to really see his potential last year when he wasn't just like the main number one driver at that team. Once Sainz came in and people saw him beating him on many occasions, it kind of solidified his spot as one of the top drivers in the sport. So I think it'll go to Albon, but it could be a close one. We have to talk about Aston Martin. I'm sure everyone has seen it, but the last few days there's talk that they won't even make the Australian Grand Prix. And now it has been said that they will at least compete in practice and potentially qualifying, but there's talk that they won't even make 25 laps in the race because there's too much vibration from the Honda engine that it can cause nerve damage to the driver's hands, which is, at this point, I honestly feel so bad for Aston Martin and just the whole team. Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, whoever you support, I feel bad for them because they put all that money into that new Silverstone factory, and they put all that money into the Aston Martin Formula One factory in England. They got Adrian Newey, not really arguably, but the greatest designer, engineer, Formula One history. I saw a quote that said they were probably the 5th best chassis on the grid, which kind of surprised me because it's an Adrian Newey chassis. But either way, with the Honda engine, they're not getting anywhere. They're 4 seconds off the pace in testing, and it's honestly just depressing to see. So I hope they make the next race, but realistically, who knows? When it comes to head-to-head, though, it's going to be Fernando Alonso. Enough said. Racing Bulls. We have Arvid Lindblad, who is the only rookie on the grid this season. Don't think it's going to be him. I think he only got 4th in Formula 2 last season, and I really just... We'll see, but I don't really rate him that much. But I think Liam Lawson is definitely going to win that head-to-head between them. So Audi. I'm so glad that Audi is in the sport. I think it's really great to have another car manufacturer in the sport that isn't just like a private racing team. I think it's really great to see that. And they have their own engine in the 2026 regulations, which is just going to invite more and more other big manufacturers to the sport. So I think that is really great. And they have a German driver, Nico Hülkenberg, in the seat after his first podium last season. So yeah, I think it's going to go to him. It's Nico Hülkenberg against Gabriel Bortoleto, the Formula 2 champion in 2024. And I love Gabriel. I think he's going to prove a lot this year because it's now his 2nd full-time season in Formula 1. But got to go to experience. It's going to go to Hülkenberg. But that one should be close. That'll be one to look out for sure. Now, last but not least, Cadillac, the first American team on the grid in a very, very long time. And I'm quite excited about that. I really wasn't expecting to be a Cadillac fan, to be honest, but I think their livery looks great with the black and white on each side, and I can't help but root for them a little bit. And I love their 2 drivers, Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, so we'll see who wins on that. But I'm going to give it to Valtteri Bottas. I think Perez, as we've seen at the Red Bull, is a little bit less adaptable than Valtteri Bottas. I think Bottas has been consistently quick throughout his entire career. He might not have, the racecraft. He might not have the racecraft as like Sergio Perez, other drivers on the grid, but I think in overall pace, Bottas is just going to kind of nick him by the end of the championship. But that'll also be a very close one. I think Perez's reputation was pretty destroyed by his time at Red Bull in those last couple seasons where he was not doing great, but I think I'm going to give it to Bottas over pure consistency. So yeah, those are my head-to-head thoughts for the 2026 Formula 1 season. But now, the big ones. We have to talk about the Drivers' Championship, the Constructors' Championship, and I'm going to do a few fun ones that, I want to throw in there for predictions. So let's start with the underdog of the year. That is Alpine. I think 100% Alpine, which is very surprising looking at all the other teams that I think could have been in the top of that midfield, including Aston Martin or Williams, after all the James Vowell talk of this being their, big push in the 2026 season to move up the regulations. But Alpine had a very good test. They looked very reliable. They looked very quick, and I think they have a very good lineup. So with Franco Colapinto hopefully improving a little bit this season, I think they're definitely going to be the underdog, dark horse of the season. So I could see them finishing 5th in the championship, 5th or 6th for sure. Best race of the year. Here are my thoughts about the best race of the year. I think while we're at the beginning of the season and there's so much chaos with the drivers not even really knowing how to start these cars, there's so much confusion with how the electric motor works, and the 50-50 split is making it very hard for these drivers to just get off the grid. We saw that in testing where there was, they did a couple practice starts and some would stall out, and then some drivers would just get off the grid immediately. It's very inconsistent. So I think a lot of chaos will happen during the beginning of the season until the drivers figure it out. So if I'm going to choose a best race, I'm going to give it to China. Most disappointing driver of the year. This one was very hard to me, but I'm going to give it to Isaac Hadjar. I think, and this is not really a shout at his talent. I think he's a great driver. He did a very good debut season last year, but we've seen what happens to drivers when they go to Red Bull. It honestly just destroys their reputation, and as we saw with Perez, almost destroys your career. So I got to give it to Isaac Hadjar. I think he'll fare somewhat well against Verstappen, but brand new car, brand new regulations, and a brand new team, and it's Red Bull. I could see him falling short, just like Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon and Perez and all the other drivers that Red Bull have done. That's just the curse of the second Red Bull seat, so we'll see. Most disappointing team of the year. as I said, Aston Martin might not even make the end of the race or 20 laps of the first race. So they don't even know how to fix the car. They don't even know exactly how to fix the vibrations in the engine. And the next race is in a couple weeks. So that kind of sets the stage for the season, sadly. But it's got to be Aston Martin. I don't know who else it could be. They're 4 seconds off the pace. Sorry, a little rant there. Constructors' Championship. This is a big one. I'm going to give it to Ferrari. I think, yeah, I'm going to give it to Ferrari. And this is a very hard choice to make because everyone has been saying that Mercedes is the greatest team on the grid right now. But, it's kind of between Mercedes and Ferrari for first and second. Most sources I've seen have been putting Mercedes first on the grid, but as we know, the Ferrari has a great anti-lag system that the Ferrari has developed with a smaller turbocharger. And because of this, they launch off the grid compared to all the other cars. We saw in the practice test that, even Lewis starting in 9th in Bahrain would get down to first place by the first corner. And for a sport that sometimes it's very hard to overtake, track position is king. And if the first part of the season, if other teams, I'm sure they'll develop a system that, decreases the lag. I'm sure they'll figure out how to get off the grid. But for now, that track position is going to matter. And if the Ferraris have the most amazing starts on the grid, no matter where they're starting, even if they qualify 4th, 5th, 6th, they can get down to the first corner, make up those positions. Those points are going to add up by the end of the season. And so for that, I'm going to give it to Ferrari. And the greatest lineup on the grid. They have Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, and Leclerc is, the young boy of that team, but he's extremely quick. So, the big one. The Drivers' World Champion. I'm going to give it to George Russell. I was very, very tempted to give it to Leclerc, but even with the anti-lag system that Ferrari have and the pace that they potentially have at the start of the season, I think Mercedes as a constructor is just overall more consistent. And we've seen that throughout all the years. They won so many championships, back-to-back-to-back they won 5 back-to-back championships. They won 8 back-to-back championships. Sure, they did have one of the best cars on the grid, but you can't deny the consistency of that team. And that is the personnel and the car. So I think if anything's going to happen, they're going to have a very reliable car this 2026 season. With that, George Russell is a very quick driver and easily one of the best on the grid. I think this is his time to take the championship. So it'll be close. I'm hoping we have a good title fight for the championship this year. I said 2025 was going to be the greatest season of Formula One history. That did not happen. I would definitely not say. But 2026 is one of those years where literally anything can happen. It's super unpredictable with the new cars. I'm very excited. I'm going to go watch practice now because I missed the first 30 minutes. So this has been Eamon Ryan from Pure Racing. Thanks for watching.